And when we talk about core values at Pattern, we're in essence not trying to dream something up that we want to be, but rather we're trying to define who we already are and make it part of, it's just part of being a team. There's a lot of pride that goes into that. And so of course, one of our core values is data fanatics. We're data fanatics. We're a team of doers, so we love to, try to define what are we already really innately good at? What are we as if we define our company as a whole? And so it makes the values conversation actually fun and meaningful, and it, really resonates with me.
Welcome to Growth Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Today we're going to talk about values. Those company core values beyond just integrity and honesty. If you really use them well, they can align the people around your organization. They can help you get work done. They can help you serve your clients, create more value, and grow the company. What I'm talking about is these core values. A lot of people miss that opportunity to really integrate it into what they're doing. And that's the real key. You want to operationalize the values. Today, we're going to talk about the hiring function mostly, about how they use values. The guest it is. We have David Wright, who is the co-founder of Pattern. Pattern is an e-commerce kind of in the box. They're data analytics, but they're also helping brands sell more of their products across platforms. We'll talk about that in today's interview. But David believes in core values. And David has seen the benefit of how hiring the right people that have real connection to the core values that you already have in the organization is a really great step to creating the right teams and growing the company fast. Thanks for tuning in here to Growth Think Tank. Really excited about sharing this with you. And before you run, I have done so many interviews over the last few weeks. I have such an exciting time to share with you that those interviews have been organized into the 12 core principles of fast growth companies. So all you have to do to get that is go to genehammett.com/worksheet. So you can get the 12 principles, and I've been able to go in there and find which episodes will align to each individual episode. When you subscribe to Growth Think Tank, you will find exactly what you need so that you can move forward. And many of them haven't been published yet, depending on when you're hearing this, but you can tune in to the date that means the most to you. So here's the interview with David. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Gene.
Excited to have you here at Growth Think Tank.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Well, I've already let our audience know a little bit about you and the fast growth of the company, but give us some context to Pattern and what you do.
Well, Pattern is essentially e-commerce in a box. So if you look at, a lot of these big brands, we look upward and we help brands. You got, the Amazons and the Mercado Libres and the Tmalls and all the marketplaces that look downward, look at the consumer side. We help brands sell across all of those marketplaces. And we also help them with their D2C. We do Skechers D2C in China, Victoria's Secrets across Europe, and handle, a lot of D2C business in the US as well. So essentially, we'll help brands cover their entire D2C and marketplace business online. So we've helped brands grow from 3 million to 26 million, and 12 to 50, and 19 to 93. We're mainly math guys that dove into e-commerce.
Well, I'm a little bit of a math guy too, and I love the fact that you're in e-commerce, but you're really helping people optimize the whole selling platform. It's a fairly complex system of marketplaces and technologies, and you have some really amazing kind of ways of approaching that. Tell us just a little bit about is it software based?
Yeah, it's all tech based. My background is 17 years in the data science, data management world. Never been in retail, but as it turns out, the data principles that you can apply to selling, they just blow up brands. You'll get things like, I'll give you an example. On Amazon, we were looking at one. Fish oil was an $11 bid. If I add the word supplement, it's 22 cents. So we just play those kind of games at scale and have had tremendous success with a lot of these brands, growing them across both US marketplaces, international marketplaces, just focusing primarily on the measurement side of it.
Well, we're not going to talk about measurement today, even though I know that's a big part of your data-driven kind of world. We're going to talk about core values. And we were talking last week. Uh, One of the things that you said grows your company so fast, or has grown your company so fast, and you've got a little over 380 employees. Is that about right?
That's right.
Is really your attention to core values. So why are core values such an important piece?
Well, core values are fun because, a lot of companies, matter of fact, just before the meeting, I just jumped on here and I did a search for company values, and the first one that pops up is integrity and some of these things. And when we talk about core values at Pattern, we're in essence not trying to dream something up that we want to be, but rather we're trying to define who we already are and make it part of, it's just part of being a team. There's a lot of pride that goes into that. And so, of course, one of our core values is data fanatics. We're data fanatics. We're a team of doers, so we love to, try to define what are we already really innately good at? What are we as if we define our company as a whole? And so it makes the values conversation actually fun and meaningful, and it really resonates with me.
You also talked about the importance of hiring by values. Give us an example of what you're doing or the steps you take to hire by the core values.
Oh yeah, it's a must. We went through, like every company, our misses on hiring, and we picked up this book, the Who, method for hiring here. Jeff Smart, Randy Street, listened to it on the treadmill one day, and we've taken that book to the extreme, I guess. But they have a scorecarding model where you, in essence, take every position, you have to write out the mission, and then you have to say, here's the outcomes for this position, and then you have core competencies. In that core competencies section, we put our values. And then you put how important each value is. And there's more than just our values that go into that core competency piece. But it's a place where we just don't ever forget it anymore. So, and then you scorecard them. I've got one of our scorecards here, level of importance. And then those interviewing sit there and say, okay, for, a data fanatic or partner obsessed is another one of our values. How is this, person going to perform in that space? So it's just our data-driven approach, I guess, even to hiring, where we have a funnel and we dive into a scorecard, and it's really been effective at helping us hire the right people that match the values.
So at the size you're at, you're hiring probably for roles that you already have, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
Every once in a while, you probably have a new role that comes on board, but you understand what that job function is, and so you're able to document and create these scorecards. When you're actually doing the hiring process, or maybe it's your team now, are they asking certain questions, or how are they really determining their alignment with the core values?
Well, they dive into it as much as they can, but there's some pointers that that are in the book that just things like you would naturally do in an interview. Tell me more about that. If you hear anything that comes around the core values, like, tell me more about that. Can you elaborate more on that? What did you mean when you said this? And so we just do a real deep dive with them on anything that has to do with those values. And then when we're done, we never trust ourselves. One of the things that I've learned, at least, in several interviews, many over the years, is the second you start thinking you're that good, when you start you're like, I am just that guy who's really good at determining whether this person would be a good hire. As soon as you start feeling like you're that guy who can just divine somebody, you're going to miss. So we then, once we're done, we have our opinion all lined up. We call and vet it with about 3 to 5 references, generally 5. And then we get a really good idea.
Hold on for a second. Dave just talked about a deep dive on values and that hiring process. One of the things I've seen work really well is for you to have your values and a list of questions that will allow you to tune in to whether that person has a good fit for the values or they're trying to stretch. You want to make sure you ask the questions the right way, and you can share these questions across all of the people interviewing them in sort of a library. Let them pick and choose. Don't give everybody the same questions. That just would be weird in the interview process. But if you use this, would allow you to tune into that so you can be intentional about hiring the right people that already align the values of the company. Now back to the interview. Anything else in that process that allows you to determine, who's going to be the right player inside your culture?
Oh, it's as varied as the job, but um, what we'll do oftentimes is we'll take people who we feel exemplify the values that we're looking for. So we have what we call focused interviews in each of these areas. So we'll do a focused interview, say on data fanaticism or on the core values. We'll take the people that we feel like internally exemplify that skill really well as the interviewees for that particular value. So there's several pieces to it, but that's maybe one extra thing if you're looking.
I haven't heard that approach yet. By having them as team players that are already excelling in those areas, they should be able to tune in to people that are similar to them in those values.
Well, they tend to have a really high bar. So if you get past that guy,
yeah,
generally really good.
Which I know a lot of people that are growing fast struggle with hiring the right people. And I cringe every time when they say, well, we just had to hire someone. And it sounds like you're okay with it being a high bar. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There is some teasing that goes on in our post-interview process. We have a few guys we call the wet blanket, because they always give a score of like 5 or 4 or whatever, but it's really good for us. And no one gets hired unless everyone is on board.
Okay. Is that kind of a meeting at the end where you're like, okay, we're going to make a decision for 3 or 4 people at a time? And
that's right. And everyone brings their results of their focused interview or their scorecard, and we sit and go through it and make the decision.
And if one person is a holdout, what do you do?
It depends on how strong they are of a holdout, but generally we then go. That interview process basically says, yes, we're all comfortable enough to call references. References are king for us.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you going through that detail with us. I find that companies that don't have this attention to values that you have communication issues. So I'm going to ask you this kind of rhetorical question. How are the communication between the team members?
With regard to the interview process?
So after the fact, just through the whole doing the work, once they're actually living the values.
The culture's great. Once people get through the door, then, we're a lot more relaxed and everyone just enjoys themselves. One thing we have found though is unless you put the detail around this, we've measured because we're nerdy like this, but we implemented this hiring process, about a year ago. And we had every manager and every, VP throughout the organization go through and say, who are your A, B, C, D players? And then we took their hire dates. And since implementing this, we're at 89% A players. For those hired before we started the book, we were at around 68% A players, as just determined by their manager. So we found around a 21% increase in A players just by following a rigorous process on hiring.
When you think about the development of people, getting that they're already, pretty high level in say data fanatics, but you get them to love it even more. How are you doing that? How do you get them to like kind of really tune in to a core value?
Oh, we tend to complement. So every month we have an all hands meeting, and we'll bring everyone together and we'll point out, we'll have every executive submit up, we have 4 core values. So for each of those core values, we say, hey, walk us through somebody who really killed it in this area. And we'll hand out awards and whatnot every month to those who exemplify it. And everyone just gets excited. And we don't have to do a lot other than just to point out, successes and wins. And every once in a while, we'll be in a meeting, we'll be like, we just don't feel like this document has been data fanaticized enough, or that we don't feel like we're being partner obsessed enough with this in this conversation. So it's constantly talking about it.
I love the fact that you're giving awards, and I know some people out there frown upon it, but I actually think it's a way to bind the team together. People that it is still a team atmosphere, I would assume, but recognizing people that are really killing it is a good thing. And from a leadership perspective, how's it working for you?
Oh, it's great. It doesn't even matter what the award is. I literally could get up and give a pen out. They don't care. It's just sort of, for a while there, we passed around this little weird looking elephant thing. So it doesn't matter, I don't think, what the award is, as long as there's talk and recognition and people feel valued.
Now, I do have to ask this question. I'm sure you've had to let people go, and it's probably because of something related to values. Are you exiting people because of their kind of adherence to the values?
I'm trying to think if we're doing that on. I think in general, for our company, if you're not partner obsessed and a data fanatic and a team and a doer, then you're going to get exited just because you're not performing well, I guess. I don't know if we talk about it as much in the context of values, but I'm sure that it happens.
Well, I know one of the things that you have done and seen some success with is OKRs. How does that work into the values?
Oh, well, OKRs are just a great way to measure what you're doing. Those were founded at Intel. Google used them. We every time we don't know what to do, we just start reading as many books about that topic as possible. That's how we found OKRs. And so when we're building out our OKRs, of course, they're built, in a way, that they represent values anyway. So anything you want to measure, you drop into an OKR. And so for Partner Obsessed, for example, we do an NPS score for all of our partners, which came in at a 9.3 this year, which is pretty good. Well, we average our NPS score, unlike a lot of folks out there. But so our goal is to hit 9% or average of 9 from current partners on the NPS, and we hit a 9.3. And so I guess that's just one example of us measuring that value.
Now hold on for a second. You just mentioned OKRs. This is one way that you can actually align people together. OKRs are objectives and key results. You've probably heard about it. We didn't go much into it here, but I thought I'd take a moment to share with you some of the previous interviews and conversations I've had with founders and CEOs. Objectives are, phrases about where we're going. We're going to increase the customer service. We're going to, reach new markets, whatever it may be. But then the key results are the measurable elements of that. And if you actually build that at the executive level and then have each team below that have their own OKRs, you really do have a powerful force inside the company. Now back to the interview. I wanted to ask you one more question from a leadership perspective. What is one area where you're growing and really evolving at this moment in the stage of your company?
Oh, my hot point right now is the story of Sesame Street. So we're talking about a lot in our leadership meetings and in our all hands about Sesame Street. It's just an interesting story because when Sesame Street was founded, what they were really good at was figuring out how to measure whether the kids were engaged. I don't know if you heard the story a little bit, but they would measure, I believe it was segments every 7.5 seconds, maybe it was 7.5 minutes, but they measured engagement, and it was all, at the time it was just with a pencil and paper, but they in a way innovated. And their early days, they would have shows that would run at a 55% engagement. And after measuring it, they got all their shows to 85% engagement. And look at the results, So what they were really good at was measuring. They innovated how to measure. Matter of fact, we've laughed several times. We're like, gosh, if we'd have had all the data on the Sesame Street had, many of us could have been producers of Sesame Street and done a pretty good job. So that's where we're looking at this saying, there's a lot of good Facebook advertisers, a lot of teams out there. What we want to win at and figure out and innovate in is how to measure the success. Because then we don't even need to be rocket scientists on how you implement that. You just measure, you're like, that worked, that didn't work. And I was sitting with the partner not long ago, and they said, they're arguing about which approach was better on pitching this product that they had. And they were done, and they looked at me like I was I was the guy who would know the answer. And I was like, I have no idea. But if you give me 3 months, we'll just measure all aspects of that, and we'll come back and tell you. So I think if if there's anything we're really diving in on right now, it's trying to figure out how to innovate. I was just at a university this morning going through one of their labs that they're using for eye movement, and they have an emotional sensor that they put on the forehead. So what are the different ways you can innovate in that space? That's what we're.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you being here on the podcast, sharing your insights of leadership and culture, and appreciate you really giving us your perspective on values and how you use them.
You bet. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic interview. I love this conversation with values. I know I've had it before here on the podcast, but here's the truth. I believe this is one of the most essential functions as a leader, to be able to understand what the values of the company are, tune into it across the organization, and to be able to bring in more people that are aligned around those values. I do believe in diversity of thought. You have to have this real clear focus of those values, or you will hire the wrong people, and that'll cost you a lot of money. I love the fact that he shares the numbers. He is a data fanatic, and it's great to see the uplift when you really focus on hiring the right people. Thank you for tuning in here to Growth Think Tank. I really love this conversation. If I could help you in any way with your leadership, your culture, the growth of your company, make sure you reach out to me, Gene at GeneHammett.com. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.